If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things.
In 1641, a French philosopher sat down and tried to destroy everything he believed, not because he had lost his faith or his mind, but because he had realized something that most people spend their entire lives never confronting, that almost everything he thought he knew he could be wrong about, and he wanted to find out if there was anything left standing once he had doubted everything he possibly could. His name was René Descartes, and what he found at the bottom of that exercise in radical doubt would become one of the most important and most quoted statements in the entire history of human thought. Not because it is complicated, but because it is the most certain thing a human being can ever say about themselves. Descartes was born in France in 1596. He was a mathematician, a scientist, and a philosopher, and he lived at a time when everything that people thought they knew about the world was being overturned. The scientific revolution was underway, old certainties were collapsing, and Descartes became preoccupied with a question that sounds simple, but unravels everything the more seriously you take it. What can I actually know for certain? Not what do I believe, not what seems likely, not what everyone around me agrees on. What can I know with absolute certainty? The kind of certainty that no argument and no evidence could ever shake. He began with the senses. Can he trust what he sees and hears and touches? He quickly concluded that he could not. The senses deceive. People see things that are not there. They mishear words. They feel phantom pain in limbs that no longer exist. If the senses can be wrong even once, they cannot be trusted as a foundation for absolute knowledge. He went further. Can he trust that he is not dreaming? Right now, in this moment, how does he know that the world around him is real and not an elaborate dream? He thought about it honestly and concluded that he could not know. Every dream feels real while you're inside it. The vividness of an experience is no guarantee of its reality. He went further still. What if there is a powerful deceiving force, some malicious entity, that has arranged all of his perceptions to mislead him? What if everything he thinks he knows about mathematics, about logic, about the external world is being fed to him by something designed to keep him in a state of permanent confusion? Could he rule that out with certainty? He could not, and so one by one the things he thought he knew fell away. The external world, other people, his own body, mathematics, history, everything he had built his understanding of reality on turned out to be something he could, at least in principle, be wrong about. And then he hit something he could not doubt. The very act of doubting required a doubter. The fact that he was thinking, even if every thought was false, even if everything he thought about was an illusion, proved that there was something doing the thinking. You cannot have a thought without a thinker. You cannot have doubt without something that doubts, and that thing, whatever it was, whatever its nature, was undeniably there, undeniably existing. In the very moment of questioning its own existence, it was proving that it existed. Cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. This was Descartes' foundation, the one solid thing left standing after he had pulled everything else apart. Not the external world, not his body, not other people, but the bare fact of his own thinking, his own experiencing, his own consciousness. That could not be doubted, because the doubt itself was a form of thinking, and thinking required a thinker. It is worth pausing to feel the full weight of what this means, because it is easy to nod along to it as a historical curiosity and miss how genuinely strange and profound it is. You're sitting with absolute certainty about exactly one thing right now. Not the chair or the floor beneath you, not the people around you, not the world outside the window. Those are all things you infer from your perceptions, and your perceptions could theoretically be wrong. The one thing you cannot be wrong about is the fact that you are experiencing something, that there is something it is like to be you in this moment, that you exist as a conscious thing having an experience. Everything else is inference. Everything else is constructed from the raw material of perception, and could, in some extreme philosophical scenario, be mistaken, but the experiencing itself cannot be mistaken. Because even the experience of being mistaken is still an experience. Even the sensation of being confused is a sensation, and sensations require a subject. They require you. This is the deepest form of self-knowledge available to a human being. Not knowledge about your history or your personality or your beliefs, but knowledge about the bare fact of your existence as a conscious experiencing thing. That is something no argument can remove from you. No circumstance can take it away. No other person can tell you it is not there. I think therefore I am is not a conclusion you reach through reasoning. It is a recognition you have when you look directly at the fact of your own awareness. Descartes used this foundation to try to rebuild everything else he had torn down. He argued that from the certainty of his own existence he could prove the existence of God, and from God's existence he could prove that the external world was real. Those arguments have not held up as well as the cogito. Most philosophers today find them unconvincing, but the cogito itself, the starting point, has never been successfully refuted. The reason it matters beyond the technical debates of philosophy is what it points to about the relationship between consciousness and everything else. Descartes discovered, almost by accident, that consciousness is not one item in a list of things that exist. It is the precondition for knowing that anything exists at all. The world does not come first, and then consciousness appears in it. Consciousness comes first, and through it the world becomes knowable. This is the thing that the hard sciences struggle with. You can describe the physical universe in extraordinary detail down to the behavior of subatomic particles, and none of that description touches the fact that there is something it is like to be a thing experiencing that universe. Descartes did not solve that problem, but he was the first to identify it with that kind of precision. He drew the line between the inner and the outer with a clarity that changed philosophy forever. What Descartes gave us is not just a philosophical argument, it is a place to stand when everything else feels uncertain. And in a world that generates uncertainty at an extraordinary rate, that matters. You can lose your job, you can lose relationships, you can lose your sense of direction, your confidence, your certainty about what you believe and who you are. All of that is possible. All of that has happened to people and will happen again. But the one thing that cannot be taken from you in any of those circumstances is the bare fact of your own awareness. The fact that there is something doing the experiencing, that something is there, that it exists. That it cannot be argued out of existence because the argument itself is evidence of its existence. I think therefore I am is not a slogan, it is a foundation. And foundations are most useful not when everything is going well, but when everything has been stripped away, and you are trying to find something solid to stand on. Descartes found it by doubting everything he possibly could, and what he discovered at the bottom of that doubt was you. Not the version of you that holds opinions and plays roles and presents itself to the world, the version of you that is simply there, experiencing, aware, undeniably existing in this moment and every moment that you're capable of questioning your own existence. That cannot be taken from you, and it never will be.